This is Getting On with Life, Biblical Wisdom for Successful Christian Living. And this lesson is Own Your Life. It seems silly to suggest we should own our life. But in the season of restrictions, we discover that we may not own ourselves as we thought. We like to think we are in control of our lives, but there are several forces that will take our life from us. The first is sin. When we choose to do wrong, that wrong takes possession of us and owns us. We become a slave to that sin or habit or wrong attitude, value system, or the like. Many people act like they own themselves, but are totally owned by sin and defeat. In John 8:34, Jesus replied, "Truly, truly, I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin." And in Romans 6:16, Paul says, "Do you not know that if you yield yourselves to anyone as their slaves, you are slaves of the one you obey, either of sin, which leads to death, or of obedience, which leads to righteousness?" Similarly, we can be enslaved to fear, pride, unbelief, and lust. Each of these things can so claim us and lock us up that we are never free from their hold over us. That's why some people just can't bring themselves to believe in God, or to be humble, or to live free from selfish impulse. We can also be owned by the fear of man. This is when we feel the powerful need to be accepted by others and win their approval. There is the wider social approval we seek, and the acceptance of our closer friends as well. Fear of man snares us and traps us as slave to the opinions of others. Proverbs 29:25 says, "The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever puts his trust in the Lord will be safe." We can also be enslaved by others who intimidate us or seek to dominate us. There are people and systems that want to manipulate us, dominate us, and control us. Some people are power hungry, and the proof of their power is that others are controlled by them. Sadly, such people can be in positions of power or in our social systems and use their position to indulge their desire for importance and power. We refer to badge power when people indulge their feelings of self-importance by abusing rights they have from their office. Worse still, there are global forces battling each other for control of people. When global corporations battle for market share, they are battling to control you. They want you to serve their brand and their commercial objectives, so they do all they can to influence you. Influence is one word, but it can have little distinction from manipulation. And domination is where people are intimidated and forced to comply even against their preferred will. Control is then the situation where people have lost their will and are just told what to do. As the world went into various forms of lockdown this year, self-determination was taken from us. In fear of disease, people willingly locked themselves in their homes and kept distant from family and friends. The whole of society, including centuries-old practices, were shut down. Institutions as strong as the church, famous sporting teams, global brand names, iconic places, and centuries-old traditions were swept aside on the claim of great risk to the public. For the power-hungry, that has to be an historic moment of triumph. So, with all these different forces and processes around us, let me ask you if you own your life. Are you free to be who God created you to be, or are you trapped in sin, shame, habits, attitudes, and addictions that enslave you? Have you sold your soul? Have you sold yourself out for approval by others? Through history, millions of people have given in to pressure and traveled a path that was not their desire. When that happens, they obviously don't own their life. Have you given up your will for the approval of your supposed friends? Have they led you into things you thought you would never do? Have you given up your morals or values to keep in with the crowd? If so, you don't own your life anymore. Have you let those in control tell you who you are and what you can do? Has everyone with a badge been able to intimidate you to respond thoughtlessly? If you don't consider who you are and what powers you really have, others will tell you you have none. That suits their agenda. Have you given thought to what rights and privileges God gave you? Can you list the inalienable rights? Do you know how personal rights have been protected or lost? If not, you are ignorant and easily controlled. Do you believe everything you are told? How can you be sure what is true? Are you a sucker for every conspiracy theory? Or do you reject everything but the television news? If you don't know how to filter what you are told, you are easily controlled. What about your will? Do you give in to every demand? Or are you the stubborn type who argues with everything? How do you know when to stand and what to stand for if you stand at all? If you don't know, then aren't you likely being controlled? If you are being controlled by others, or their advertising, or their propaganda, or by the media, or by the mob around you, then how can you think you own your life? Haven't you handed your life over to others and to forces that now direct how you live? In every generation there have been people who stood for what is right against evil, despots, their own government, corporate or military might, and even their family and culture. That's how slavery was defeated and how nations became independent. That's how oppressed people gained their rights and freedom. That's how evil was finally confronted and overcome. That's how great breakthrough has come to civilizations. So it can be an amazingly powerful thing to own your life. What's more, God gave you your life and will hold you accountable for how you use it. If you think your life and your body are tools for your own pleasure, then you are rebelling against God, stealing the life He entrusted you with and selling it out cheaply to your enemy. The only way to truly live is in the fear of God. Recognize that you do not belong to yourself. You don't actually own your life, but you hold it in trust as an asset loaned to you by God. If you are faithful in what you do with your life, God will bless and enrich it. If you've already sold your life to sin, addictions, shame, defeat, fear of man, social enslavement, and the like, then only Jesus can give it back to you. He died to buy back the life you trashed, so He can restore your life to you. I suggest you watch my lesson, Redeemed, to find out more about that. Humble yourself before God and call on the salvation and rescue that come through Jesus. Let God give you back the life you trashed. Then begin to live that life for God and God's purposes. And take stock of how you have lived and how you now need to live. Let God guide and teach you so you can now get on with life and, as God wants it, truly own your life. God bless you.